Hey everybody, this is Eric here with Josh. How you doing today, Josh?
Doing pretty good. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. So excited for tonight's call. This is actually Christmas week, so Christmas is coming up at the end of the week, which is exciting. And if someone's joining us and you've never been on one of these calls before, welcome. If you have been on many of these calls, excited to have you back. But basically, what I wanted to get to is what our group is all about. We're the Live the Movie team, and what our group is all about is a personal development and accountability group to help you and also the rest of the group achieve their goals, and using the metaphor of living the movie, that your life is a movie and you're the main character, the protagonist of your movie. And just like every good story-based movie, there's instances, there's challenges, there's things that people go through where they get knocked down, but they get back up. And the biggest thing is when someone starts out in one of those movies, they have a goal in mind and they think if they achieve that goal, but only once they achieve that goal, they'll become worthy of being loved, or they'll consider themselves to be successful, or they'll consider themselves to be important. So the goal is the thing they have to achieve to really feel good about themselves. And throughout the process of the movie, they become really close to achieving that goal. And then something happens that knocks them off course. And where the real turning point in the movie is not when they achieve the goal. It's the moment where they're knocked down and it looks like they're not going to be able to achieve their goal, and they turn inside and say, I'm going to be that person that's worthy of attracting this person, achieving this goal, winning this championship, beating the villain, whatever it is. And by doing so, the fear goes away and they actually are able to achieve the goal because there's no resistance from themselves. So our goal is to help you do that, eliminate that resistance from yourself to be able to go and achieve the things that you want, and to help each other achieve the things that each other want. Because when you can do that, you feed off the energy and you're able to hit some results. And Josh and I were talking right before this call about some of the things that he's working on and doing. And it's amazing when you have a discussion one-on-one or a group discussion, you realize you're not as far off track as you think you are. And there's little strategies that you could do, or maybe you are progressing and in your own mind you think you're not. But when you're left to your own thoughts, even those of us that have studied this stuff for a long time, the mind plays tricks on you. And if you're not focused, if you're not controlling your focus, the ego, whatever you want to call it, the ego, your mind, your old patterns take over and really, lead you down a path you don't want to go, or go back to the way things were. So that's why you want to have external feedback from people that will reinforce the beliefs that you have, what you're excited about, and hold you accountable of what you said that you want. And that's the biggest key, is if you can tell people what you want and then have them hold you accountable of what you say you want, you're going to be motivated to follow through because they're only telling you what you want to do. So that's exciting. So part of our group, we do a few things. We have these weekly hangouts with our leaders here. And we really focus on, again, the goals that we've each picked to hit, which is an exciting thing, that we're all focused on different goals, but the goals that we have are very empowering, and seeing each other make progress is very exciting. And then every 3 or 4 months, we get together and have a mastermind, because even as technology grows and we get more connected, even when we're apart, nothing replaces being in person with people, feeling their energy, learning stuff, even relearning stuff, the repetition. And then the other thing we do is, because we each have separate goals, and then we have our masterminds, the way to tie everything together is we got to continue to be learning. And the way we do that is once a month, or every month, we read a book focused on some form of personal development. It might be about a specific topic. This month is about spirituality, but it could be about success or leadership or finances or any number of personal relationships, whatever. But the main thing is it's the personal development way of looking at any of these topics. And the information that we've learned, the people on the screen here, myself, Josh, and Mallory, we've actually learned a lot of this stuff before, the principles that are in these books, but being able to hear them from different perspectives, and then being able to hear different perspectives for all of us that are leaders, that reinforces the things that we've learned, gives us a few little more tips to add to our repertoire, and keeps us motivated to actually go after our goals, because the day-to-day things that you do to achieve a goal really aren't that exciting. I talked about last call the concept of the latte factor. If you don't go get a coffee every morning and you put that $5 into a retirement account and it grows for 40 years at 8%, you'd end up with $1 million when you retire if you were 25. And that's not the day-to-day action isn't really that exciting. Or training for a marathon, going out for a run every day, it's really not that exciting. So you got to have people to hold you accountable, remind you of why you're doing things, and give you the right perspective, but also to continue to learn and grow. So what I'm actually excited about is to hear from our panel here is, what are some of the exciting things you've learned from the book that we're reading so far? And then also, since we did have a discussion last week and the week before, even though you guys had just got into the book, any applications of this that you've seen in the past week where you went to an event or you were doing something and then afterwards you're like, wow, that was a lot of fun. Why was it fun? Oh my God, I was super present. I wasn't worried about this or that. I was just in the moment or doing whatever. So if you guys have something to share, like, specific things you got from the book and or instances where it was applied to your life this week.
I mean, I'd like to share that just his clarification of our concept of time and how skewed it sometimes can be. It's just so fascinating because I was just reading through some of the stuff I highlighted, and I highlighted more stuff as I was going through because it's like stuff pops up. I'm like, oh my gosh. Is end the delusion of time? And the question that most people ask, I love the question and answer concept, by the way, too. It seems almost impossible to disidentify from the mind. We are all immersed in it. How do you teach a fish to fly? And then he just says blatantly, basically, and the delusion of time. Time and mind are inseparable. Remove time from the mind and it stops unless you choose to use it. So
I think your volume went out somehow.
We still can't hear you. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Nope, still not there.
Yeah, she dropped off. All right, Josh, do you have anything? We'll have Mallory jump back in.
Let's see. I'm not quite sure where she was going with that, but let me see if I can figure out something that was a little bit that kind of spoke to me here. I don't know. I kind of feel like, in a lot of ways, I feel like some of the opposite of what you were describing happened sometimes, where I was kind of like not being present in what I was doing. It kind of snapped in. And I know a couple times through the first couple of chapters, I know Eckhart says that, if you suddenly realize that you're not present, you're being present when you realize that you're not present. So
yeah,
cool. It is kind of funny because there are a lot of times where you're kind of stuck in traffic, or you're doing something you don't enjoy doing. Maybe like this past weekend I had to shovel like right after one of my shifts, and so so that was definitely not pleasant. But I just kind of did it, and then just kind of realized that okay, after this I can just sleep, and then I can not have to worry about it. So yeah,
yeah, that's interesting. So that's a good point. Mal, can you speak? Did your headphones die? I can't. Can you, Josh?
It's still not coming through now.
What happened to the volume? Yeah, that's a really good point, Josh. Actually, when you start out learning that stuff, that's usually what happens, is that you, instead of being present and then noticing you're present, you notice when you're not present first, because that's kind of the pattern that you run a lot. So that's great. That's some good awareness. There's also something that you can do, because when you talk about how do you make make shoveling exciting or something like this? One of the things you can kind of do, and this is all kind of the concept, I just made it up off the top of my head last call, which was like, you're always either, because when Eckhart gets asked the question, yeah, but my life sucks right now, how can I just be present and ignore all the stuff that's going on? And the point is, he says, you're either planning to plan how to overcome it, or you're actually planning, meaning you're in the process of figuring out what to do, or you're just living in the moment. So you're planning, you're doing what it is to overcome the problem, or you're just living in the moment. And one of the things with the situation you're talking about, Josh, is is kind of talking about just saying kind of just saying, how can I make this moment exciting or fun? And what I mean by that is, sometimes when I'm in traffic or whatever, like I was, I went out on Saturday with the snowstorm because Meg's working at the Costco in Dedham, and she wanted me to drive her, and normally she drives herself. So as I'm sitting there, I dropped her off, and then I came back because she's there for such a long period of time. I came back home, and as I'm driving home, it was an absolute disaster of a snowstorm. And one of the things I did was I took a minute and I said, well, why are we doing this? Why is Meg doing this show? It's like, well, it's the best time of year to sell Cutco in that type of environment, whether it's on the Vector side with the selling in malls, and on the Costco side selling Costco. The best show of the year is the one right before Christmas. So it's the biggest opportunity to impact the most customers, make the most money, which is going to have a payoff in the next year. So when it's nice out, we can go on trips, we can save money, we can do all this stuff. So I went really quickly in my head through why we were doing this. And then I got ultra present and just focused on driving in the traffic. And I didn't become excited about driving in the traffic, but I eliminated the part of me being like, I don't want to be in traffic. I don't want to be here. I just was there. And the way I did that was I reminded myself why I was even in the traffic, and I was there because I had to drive Meg to work. It happened to be snowing. I have no control of that, but we were doing it so that she could impact customers, make money, so that we could do some fun things and enjoy ourselves, especially when it is nice out. So that's almost like a planning type of thought. And then I just became ultra present, realizing that there was a reason why I'm sitting in the traffic. So I just thought that was an interesting point, because you kind of say, well, how do you become present when you don't want to be sitting in traffic? You don't want to be doing this. You don't want to be doing that. Well, you either make it fun or you remember why you're there in the first place, meaning you came from somewhere. You either came from something you enjoyed, whether it was a concert, hanging out with friends. You came from work where there was a benefit of making money, impacting customers. So there was something that happened that has you in that situation that actually was of some benefit to you. And once you can connect to that, then you can just get present and just be present. You don't necessarily enjoy the moment, but you're there.
Yeah, it's funny because I think there was one night when back when you and I worked for that sales company together, when I was out in your office. I think there was one night where I was there helping you out with either like interviews or training or something like that, and it snowed probably a good 2 or 3 inches between the time that I got there and the time that I was supposed to leave. And by the time I was supposed to leave, it was probably like 8, 9 o'clock at night, and so I had to drive back in all the snow. And it was crazy. It took me a pretty long time to get home. But whenever I have that kind of issue, I just kind of like just focus on what's right there in front of me, and just worry about what I need to do at that point in time, because if I don't, I might not live. So
Right.
for all I know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a good point too. Yeah, I mean that's too. I mean, when I was out there, that's the flip side of it, is I got to pay attention to make sure I get through what's going on. So I got to be present. I can't be thinking about what everybody else is doing, or anything else like that, or what could go wrong. I just got to make sure that I'm focused. So that's a good point too. That'll get you to be present as well. Hold on. Let's see. Meg called me like 5 times. I don't think she realizes I'm doing the call.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, she's at Costco. This is her 9th day or 8th. Let's see, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Her 8th day out of 13 straight days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so she's getting tired, but it's the absolute best time of year to be in Costco. So she'll.
Yeah.
I don't think she's gonna do another show till probably May or something like that. So,
Oh, that's good.
yeah. So, but yeah. So it's a good opportunity. But yeah. So it was a really good point you brought up. Sometimes you can almost get scared into being present if it's a tough situation. But yeah, you got to focus. Can't be all over the place. You know, that's a lot of times what causes things to go wrong, especially if you think about like what I was saying with driving and stuff. If you're on your phone while you're driving, you're being distracted, stuff like that. You know, that kind of causes some of those type of problems. Mallory is currently rebooting her computer because she doesn't know what happened there.
Yeah, no idea. Let's see.
So we'll see. But yeah. So did you have any particular quotes or stuff that you underlined or kind of stuck out to you in what you read this week?
Yeah. Kind of forgetting what kind of meaning they kind of had for me. This is kind of the problem that I have at this point, but
Yeah.
let me see what I've got here. Um,
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yay! I had to restart my computer.
That was.
I don't know what happened.
It was a 12-minute power pause.
Yeah, I'm gonna be able to drop the mic after what I'm about to say.
Yeah. All right.
What did you guys talk about? Anything else?
Yeah, we were talking about how to be present when you don't really enjoy Josh talked about shoveling. I talked about how Meg's working at Costco these 2 weeks, and I drove her to Legacy Place on Saturday in that blizzard of a snowstorm. And, on the way home, I was actually kind of scared, to be honest with you, because it was like just a disaster out there. But as I'm driving, I'm asking myself, why am I in traffic driving, but like in an empowering way, not like why the hell am I in traffic? Kind of like, why am I doing this? I'm like, okay, well, I'm doing this because Meg's doing this show and she's doing this show because the absolute best opportunity to be in retail right before Christmas. It's an opportunity to help out a lot of customers, make a bunch of money so that she doesn't have to work during my busy season. And then when it's nice out, we're going to get to go on trips and save money and do all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, because I had that quick thought about why am I doing this, I became ultra present and said, I got to focus on getting us home. And then I wasn't adding to my aggravation of being like, why am I the negative? Why am I in traffic and stuff? So we were kind of talking about that concept of, how can you get yourself to be present when you don't want to be in the situation you're in or whatever the situation may be.
Yeah, and I think our minds just naturally tend to wander. Like, I know my mind can go from one topic to like 10 others in a matter of milliseconds. So it's cool. The last thing that I heard Josh kind of talk about before I jumped off was just about how, when you think about, oh gosh, I'm not present right now, that immediately jumps you back into being present in the moment. And the next quote that I highlighted in the book was just about nothing can happen in the past. The past was the now of the past, if that makes any sense. So there really is only now. Like, you can't do anything in the future. You can't do anything in the past because the moment has already gone by. And it's just, I think our mind wanders in a good way sometimes, like what you just talked about, Eric. But sometimes if we find that, you know, we're getting a sense of nervousness or anxiety or sadness or something related to a thought that we're having, it's so important just to remind ourselves, all right, why do I feel like this right in this moment? Like I'm sitting, whatever you're doing, you know, when I'm sitting and eating dinner with my husband, it's like we just have dinner together and we chat and we just talk about our day and things like that. And if all of a sudden I start to just have my mind wander and I go to a place that puts me in a negative mind state, then I'm like, wait a second, I have food on my plate. I'm enjoying dinner with my husband. We actually get to have dinner together every single night during the weekend, on the weekends most of the time. And, you know, I have literally in this moment, I have nothing to be negative about. You know, I'm just purely happy. And in those moments, you're just able to see what you're really grateful for in your life at that time. And I think that's what the whole concept of being present in the moment is really boils down to, is just feeling a sense of fulfillment and gratitude and joy and happiness for your life, for the way your life is right now. And yeah, we always strive for different things, you know, to be a better person tomorrow and things like that. But tomorrow, we can't control tomorrow. So you might as well just take advantage of today and really appreciate today for what it is and who you are today, because you know that you are going to be different tomorrow, even if it's the smallest difference. You are going to be different. You're going to wake up just a little bit different, and you have the power to make it better different, or you can go the other way. So I think it's the power of now is really, I mean, that's the title of the book, obviously, but the power of now really is powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, sometimes when you say like, you know, it almost, you know, sometimes it sounds too simplistic when you say to somebody who doesn't read any of this stuff, like, you know, whatever happened to you in your past, it's just a thought. And they're like, what the heck are you talking about? It's not just a thought. It's something that happened or whatever. But I guess it's not so much that it's just a thought, because maybe it was like a breakup or something. And you're like, well, that actually did happen. It's like, but the part of saying it's just a thought is actually that saying, what's holding you back from doing something about it now? Instead of saying it's just a thought, because you're saying, oh, okay, so that whole experience I had with this person or this company or whatever is just, you know, it's just a thought. So the whole thing was like a waste of time because it's just a thought. Well, the other way of looking at it is not so much that it's just a thought. It's that now that you're in the present moment and the past is in the past, what's actually holding you back from making a new decision based on what happened is just a thought. And that doesn't, you know, downgrade the experience you had, whether it was positive or negative or whatever. And that was one of the things that I got out of going to all these Tony Robbins events in a row, was I wanted to see, was there ever really a situation where someone really couldn't change? There was just, it was more than just a thought. And I saw every scenario humanly known to anyone. And then eventually you just throw your arms up in the air and you say, I don't need to go to any more of these seminars in a row. I still need to go to them, but I don't need to go to, you know, one every month. I get it. It beats you over the head. It's like, okay, someone's suicidal, they're depressed, they got injured, they got divorced, they think they're going to get divorced, but now they're not. They're, you know, someone has PTSD, someone has this. And not to degrade any of those things or whatever, but when you see people being willing to put themselves out there and have a teacher and an environment that allows them to change if they want to, and to see people change in a matter of an hour to, you know, in a whole event of 6 days, you start to realize that A, me as the average person has no problems, and 2, anyone really can overcome anything. So if I don't have any problems and my challenges really aren't that big a deal, then let's go make this happen. And it really puts in perspective that it really is only thoughts that hold you back at this point, and that doesn't diminish whatever you did or had or experiences you had in the past. It's just what's going to empower you to move forward, and having an empowering thought and then being present and taking action based on that is what it's all about.
I think one really good example that a lot of people can relate to is having an injury where they had to have surgery. only because I've experienced it. And this, what you were just talking about, made me think of something that I did today. Putting my boot on this morning, and the way that so I broke my ankle 2 Januaries ago now, and I had to have a plate and 7 screws put in just so the bone healed correctly. And occasionally it will bother me, but I don't really notice it anymore. When before it would stay long, just because it was kind of sore all the time. And it obviously, something like an injury can make you think back to the moment it happened, which happened a lot before. And now, yeah, I broke my leg 2 Januaries ago, but the moment that it happened doesn't really very often. The fact that my leg is sore crosses my mind more often, which is more being present. But today, I was putting my boot on, and the way that I had my right leg resting on my left knee, it was like causing some weird pressure, and all of a sudden it was like a shooting pain, and I'm like, oh, I forgot that I did that. Like 2 Januaries ago, I forgot that happened to me. And it made me think, like, oh, I wonder when I'll be able to like run again and not feel any pain. And like all these thoughts ran through my head. But like you were just saying, what empowering thoughts are you going to have to move you in the right direction? So I could think, oh, I'm never going to be able to run again the same, or I'll never was before because of this thing that happened to me. But those are all just thoughts. Those are all just made up in my mind. And once you can get past that, and you can have that breakthrough moment of happen, but now I've healed from that. And at this point, in this present moment, my body is healed, and all I have to do is just keep moving forward, and that's it. So that just made me think of it when you said injury. But I think a lot of people can relate to that, because so many people have chronic based on something that happened decades ago, when all that really is just all this built up energy that's focused so much on that negative energy, negative injury that can be broken free from. So
Yeah.
But it's something that you can make a difference in your life in a short amount of time if you really put your mind to it.
Absolutely. And the other thing you could do is that, there's another concept which isn't necessarily in this book, but it's more something Tony Robbins teaches. But the concept of an anchor, and an anchor is that when something happens, it triggers a thought. So I'll give you like an example, and I'm sure you guys will understand this. There are still songs that came out when I was in high school that if I hear that, I become instantly depressed, because that was the song when like some girl I liked didn't want to go out with me or something. And it's like, it literally has no effect on my life right now, but you hear that, and just for a second, you go right into that mode. And an anchor is something unique that happens when you're in a really strong emotional state, either positive or negative. So most of us have tons of anchors, and we don't even realize them. And it happens when you're a little kid. One of my aunts, Logan, doesn't like, and I don't know if it's I don't know if it's because she smokes or her house is a little funky or whatever, but he has a negative anchor to her, and that can change. You can make that change. You got to just keep putting the person in the environment and realize it's not that bad, and do whatever. But we walk around thinking, wow, this is really strange. He just doesn't like her because no reason. Yeah, there's a reason. Something unique happened the first time he met her. That's what happened. And that's what's, causing that. And it's not to say you got to walk on eggshells when you have a baby and make sure they don't do anything weird. It happens to all of us, but you can and change them into something empowering. So what I was actually saying about that is, not only can you become present and not focus on the injury and what something bad that might have come out of it, but you also can look at it and say, while I was injured, what did I learn? What did I do? I know, Mallory got into kind of the online world of blogging and got more focused on her art and met this whole group of online marketers. Then she worked in a particular opportunity, and now she's back doing something else. And for me, each experience I have anyway reinforces what I'm doing now. So even if I did something that didn't work exactly the way I want, there's less questioning of what I'm doing now which makes it so much easier. So I'll give you an example, right? So my cousin Steve was a Division I hockey player at Merrimack College, where Josh went. Excuse me. He went to play professional hockey, and he played in the minor leagues for a couple years, and then kind of realized he was starting to get injured a little bit and wasn't going to make it to the NHL. So he decided to give it up, and he actually got involved and actually worked for the property management company that created Legacy Place and the Market Street place in Linfield that you guys know those places. So he worked for them, and he was property manager. He's making a lot of money for what he was doing. And he could have just done that for the rest of his life and made a bunch of money, had a good life, raised his family. But he always wanted to, if he didn't become an NHL player, he always wanted to become a police officer. That was his big dream other than being an NHL player. So it started to eat away at him, and he said, you know what, I just got to do it. And, my aunt was telling him, don't do it. And, people were more scared of him getting hurt. But they're saying, don't do it. And his response was, I have to do it. And he'd say, well, what if you try it and you don't like it? Well, if I try and I don't like it, I go back to the other job, and there's no questioning. It's eliminated. This is what I'm supposed to do, and I'm okay with it. But right now, I'm not okay with it. So the only scenario is I have to try it. And if I love it like I think I will, I'll do that. If I don't, I'll go back to what I'm doing now, and I'll love it even more because I'll know that that's what I was supposed to be doing. So he's tried it and he loves it. So he's doing that. But that's just an example of what I'm talking about is maybe an injury caused you to try some things, and maybe it became what you ended up doing, or maybe it became something you tried and it's not what you want to do, but it at least gave you more experience to make you know what you want to do so that you can become more present with what you're doing. Does that make sense? So cool. So do you guys have any other quotes or points that you got out of the book? I know Josh didn't get much sleep today, so he's trying to catch up on sleep. So we'll try to wrap it up soon. But definitely, if you guys have any more things that you want to share that you thought were pretty cool, floor is yours. Anyone?
Dead silence. I would just say that, what you were just talking about how with the anchors, actually, that kind of stood out to me, because a lot of times if we are aware of our anchors, that's when we can most change them. So, because what you focus on expands, and when something like that, when you have a negative anchor and you say, okay, every time I hear this song or every time I smell this smell, I feel a certain way. But what if I can get that, listen to that song and feel, right now, instead of feeling what I felt when I first heard it, or when I had an experience when I first heard it. And anything takes practice and repetition. So it might not happen the first time you attempt to, make a shift in an anchor that you have that you know that you want to change. You consciously know that you want to change it. So for me, it's kind of funny. When I ran my first office for Vector and Cutco, which we've all worked for, used to sell this product called Scentsy, and it's basically just wickless wax that is there's a lot of different flavors, I call them, but they're not really flavors because you don't taste them. But there was this one scent that I always had in my office when I ran my first office, and I closed my office in kind of a negative mind state because it didn't go the way that I thought it was going to go, and I was kind of depressed because I was by myself in a new place and I didn't really expect different things to happen the way that they did. But since then I've moved forward from that experience, better from it. But every time I smell that certain Scentsy scent, I instantly go back to that, with that song, go back to this mode of just depression almost. And then gosh, why does that smell bother me like that? And eventually I started to enjoy the smell again because I just had it on in all of the Scentys around my house. Because I was like, I got to get past this because I'm going to smell this and feel this way. That's not cool. So it's just different things like that you can shift in your life in. And even when sometimes you can even point out, like, in your life and an experience that you're having in the present moment. You're like, I can tell this is going to be an anchor. How do I want this to affect my future? And you can go either way. Like you said, I don't know if you said it was your cousin, Eric?
Yeah. Yep.
Your cousin, if he had made the decision to not, go for the career that you do, and just kind of stayed where he was, it might always be like, what if I had gone for it? What would my life really be like? And he can kind of go into that spiral a lot if he hadn't tried it and, put himself out there. So sometimes all it takes is just putting yourself out there in new situations. And if you have an inkling to do something, you'd be really interested in it and you really want to do it, the only person that you're hurting by not doing it or doing it is yourself. So, or potentially hurting, I guess, or potentially benefiting. So literally nobody else will be affected by the things that you do sometimes. And it could be positive. You have no idea until you try it. So, when you walk into a room, I remember when I used to walk into a room this is totally random, but I just thought of this. When I used to walk into a room of people, like a group of people that I didn't really know, and everyone kind of stopped talking in their little conversations, like you'd have people having separate conversations. I would walk in and everyone would stop and look over, and instantly I would be paranoid that they were just talking about me and they didn't want me to hear what they were talking about, even though that is totally bogus, like totally a false thought. There's no way that they would be talking about me, especially if it's a room full of people that don't even know me. So it's just kind of funny that I felt that way when I would walk into a room, and it took me a lot of years to figure out that I'm walking into a room, I'm a strange face. Obviously, they're going to look over it, and if everybody looks over and everybody else sees people looking over, they're going to do the same thing. It's just like nature that's what we do. But I started changing my mindset and saying, you know what, if they are talking about me, they're going to have a lot to talk about, because I'm going to be my energetic self, and I'm going to, make a story for myself in this moment. So I just started to use it to my advantage. That thought that would go through my head of paranoia turned into excitement, just to make an impact on these people in this room that I don't know. So that's just one other example about just shifting anchors that you have, that you know about.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, the way to create a new anchor is to actually create it the way it is created, but you can manufacture one. You get yourself in just an absolute state of energy, and then you get something to trigger you. So it's either a song, or you make some kind of move. Like Josh has been to all the Tony Robbins events. That's what Tony actually has you make a move. So you have this move that you do throughout the seminar, and when he wants you to connect an idea, he makes you do the move. So it sounds stupid, but what he's actually doing is anchoring something you learned into that. So the other thing I was thinking about is, you'll wonder why people are so excited about concerts, sporting events, anything where there's a group of people, because you get yourself in a peak state, and then there's something you're watching that you enjoy. So those things get anchored together, and then you have people that don't really care about those things and can't understand football's so stupid. Like, there's just a ball and they hit each other. It's like so dumb. And you're like a football fan and you're like, what are you talking about? but the point is, actually, believe it or not, it sounds kind of simplistic, but they actually just don't have an anchor to it, and you do if you're the football fan. And the same thing with other stuff you're doing, like, Mallory has a huge anchor to her painting, and Josh has it to when he's interacting with college students. That's what makes the world go round, is that we actually have different positive anchors to different things. But yeah, I mean, just knowing that you can change those things and choosing to do so is the part that people miss. Most people have a fixed mindset. This is the way I am. And it's true, you might have a tendency towards things, but you never want to say you are, because then you can't possibly change, because it goes against your identity, and you can't go against your identity unless you're deciding to create a whole new identity. But if you're just saying, I want to make a change, just a change, but your identity is the exact opposite of what you're trying to change, you can't do it. So that's why most people have a fixed mindset and never would change an anchor, because they think it's just who they are.
Yeah, that's totally true. And like you said, it's so simplistic, but it's so true. And I was just gonna add in really quick before we kind of wrap up that when you are in your like niche, like me with my painting, I know that I have this positive vibe and things just kind of start getting attracted to me that might not have been possible before. So when you're just like living your life with pure joy because you're doing what you love, you just are attractive to other people and people want what you have and they don't really understand what you have, but and you might not either, but it's just this level of energy and positive, attractiveness that you have about yourself that people want, and that's what kind of makes the world go round, like you said.
It's one of the things you hear a lot about people when they find a mentor. Like, when I first saw the Tony Robbins video on his website, or someone meets, like, both of us met some of our managers at Cutco or whoever it was. At first, you kind of have this like idea, and it's kind of something like this. I don't know if this happened to you guys exactly, but it happened to me when I met Ryan Trumber, who was my original manager at Cutco. It happened to me when I first saw a video from Tony Robbins. It happened to me when I first saw a video from Rhonda Swan. My first thought is, I have absolutely no idea what this person's talking about, but they're like, I can tell they're like on fire with life. So I'm going to listen to what they're talking about, trying to figure out if this applies to me. And if it does, I'm going to follow them because they're going somewhere. And that's kind of what Mallory was talking about. But you can't do that if you're holding all this baggage behind you. And that's what it's really about, living in the now. So I know we kind of got on a little bit of a tangent there, but it's all related stuff. When you have these negative anchors that hold you back, you become not present because you got this stuff that's holding you back. Did you have something real quick, Josh?
Yeah, it's funny, the whole thing that you say about mentorship. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I think my computer's freezing up. There we go. Okay. But yeah, it seems like whenever I find my mentors, it's kind of like almost like a wandering into it in a way.
Yeah.
Because I almost feel like when it seems like mentors just kind of arise out of the people that you make your best relationships with.
That's it.
But also have the type of skills, yeah. But also have the type of skills that you want to attain, and so, I think it's kind of neat just to kind of look for people who are doing what you're doing, or what you want to do rather, to the extent that you want to do it. And I know my video is freezing up here, so
yeah, we hear you.
I just made my point. So
cool. That's a good point, and that's a great segue into what our group is all about. One of the interesting things is, if you have a group like this that holds you accountable of your goals and helps you be present and helps you get where you want to go, that's all the stuff that we're talking about. And I work in the financial services industry right now, and one of the things that I was talking about before is, when people talk about retirement planning, they never do it because they're like, that's a million years from now. But the other thing that they also don't do is, they also say, like, when I retire, I picture myself as this like grandma or grandpa sitting in a chair watching TV for 12 hours a day and not moving. And that doesn't sound exciting either. So my point is that the goal is actually, when it comes to that area of life, is to have enough money so that you can retire. And then it's a choice. And then even if you do retire, you're still doing the stuff that we're doing on this call for the rest of your life, going to seminars, reading books, because whenever you stop growing as a person, that's when you start dying. I actually was reading an article today that said, for every year that you put off retirement, your chance of getting Alzheimer's goes down by 3%. And I don't think that means, it might be a stat of like when you retire from your main job, but in my mind, I'm thinking about, that doesn't mean your main job. I mean, I think that means when you like slow down, you know what I mean? Like when you might quit your job or retire, but then you go start a charity or work in a charity or volunteer somewhere or do something. I think that counts as work. So basically what it's saying is, as soon as you stop growing, that's when you start dying. And the longer you push that off, the longer you'll keep going, because as Tony Robbins always says, life supports whatever supports more of life. So if you're adding value to life, you're going to continue to be here as long as the environment can support you, because you're adding some value to it. When you're sitting idly, you're not adding not that you're not adding value. I'm sure you're adding value to your great grandkids, but you're not doing enough to keep yourself stimulated, to keep yourself going and being as active as you possibly can. So my point is, and bring this back to both our group and this book, is that the goal is to not be somewhere in the future. The goal is to be here now. Because let's say you were 60 years old, 65 years old, and you had $100 million and you didn't need to work anymore. You would still need to do this stuff. Otherwise, you'd lose your edge and start to die. So even when we all achieve every goal that we ever dreamed of, if we're still here, we still need to be learning and growing and doing all that stuff. But what's going to get you to that point is to be doing that in the right now and into the future. So, you know, I'm totally excited about our group and continuing to grow it for 2017. And, you know, if anything in this video really stuck out to you, reach out to myself or one of the other leaders. We'd love to have you join our group. And, you know, I'm really fired up about what we're doing and each of us hitting our goals. That's for sure.
Live the movie.
Live the movie. I have a question for you guys on here. Do you guys have plans next Monday night, or what do you guys have? Because I know next Monday is not Christmas, but it's like the observed Christmas. I don't know if you guys have.
Yeah, I was going to talk to you about that too, because I don't know what time we're traveling, but we're going to be coming back from Maine at that day or night. So I don't think, I was going to see if we could push it to Tuesday maybe.
Josh, does Tuesday work for you, or?
Trying to think. It might.
As we get closer, we can always kind of shift it.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah.
Why don't we talk about it and see where it goes? But we'll say no for Monday for now, just because it seems like being the observed holiday might have some plans.
Totes my goat.
I don't know.
All right, so we'll be in touch. Live the movie. We'll see you guys on the next call and talk to you soon.
Bye, guys.
See you, everybody.